You are listening to the Marc Guzman Podcast Experience. One of the most common questions families will ask when moving into a new neighborhood is, how are the schools? This can be a loaded question that a realtor must answer without bias, but at the same time, the answer could make or break your deal. And many times, realtors do not know the true answer. Today, we begin a new initiative on the Marc Guzman Podcast Experience, where we skip the middleman and go right to the schools themselves to get you the info that you want. My guest today has been the principal at Pinole Valley High School since the start of the 2013 school year. Prior to that, he spent 20 years with the Richmond School District. So please join me in welcoming to the podcast my guest, Principal Kibby Kleiman. Well, Kibby, thank you for being on the podcast here. I want to thank you for coming out just a few days before the Christmas and New Year holiday, coming out to be on the podcast. And I'm excited for this because, like I mentioned, one of the biggest questions I get all the time being in real estate is, what are the schools like in West County?
Right? Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And so let's get started. I mean, how long have you been in the educational system, in the educational industry as a professor, and you are now the principal of Pinole Valley High School? How did you initially make that transition?
Sure. I've been in the West Contra Costa Unified School District since 1988. At the time, it was the Richmond Unified School District. It changed its name in 1991. I was a classroom teacher for about 20 years, and I needed every one of those years in order to get the confidence and the experience to make a transition into school administration. There are some people who are good administrators and who don't need that much time, but I needed every one of those years for myself to deal with every scenario and to get enough confidence as a classroom instructor before I had the ego to say, I'm ready to take on administration as well.
What grades do you teach?
I was a high school teacher, so I've been in high school the whole time through and work with grades 9 through 12. So it's been 30 years in education, 30 years of high school.
Okay. My mother-in-law was a teacher, and she taught, in fact, I asked her last night if she taught high school, and she never taught high school. She had her credentials for kinder through 8th grade, but mainly she said she never taught kinder, but it was 1st grade through 8th grade, but did not teach 5th grade. Third grade was her favorite.
Okay.
Yeah. What was your favorite between the four?
I really liked sophomores and juniors. And the reason for that is freshman year is a lot about teaching what it means to be a high school student. And there are teachers who do that and do it brilliantly, and more power to them. There are teachers who love working with seniors who are making that transition. But for myself, the sophomores and the juniors were really committed at that point. High school was significant for them. They didn't have the middle school thing going on. They didn't have a foot out the door. So I thought, they're really in it to win it in those age levels. And so 10th and 11th grade, that was my sweet spot.
And high school is that transition into adulthood. I mean, once you graduate, you're out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and so high school is a great place to get the kids. I know that people speak about the challenges of adolescence. Sometimes I think in high school we get the very best of that age level. They still want to impress. They certainly still want to learn. And so often we'll have parents come and say, my kid's impossible. How do you deal with them? And I'm thinking, we get the best of your kid. Here's where your kid says, I want to continue to achieve and I want to continue to excel, and what can I do to do better? So often I think, we get the very best of that age level.
It's very interesting. I guess the psychology would be different at school because that is, in a sense, their business world.
Mm-hmm.
Like the adults have their business world, their jobs, everything they deal with. High school is their world, their professional life.
It is, and they are with their peers, and nobody likes to have their time wasted, and that goes for even students who aren't very studious. It's not fun to have period after period where there's no challenge going forth. So I think when kids find teachers and find educators who challenge them and push them, you can't go too high up and have them, reach and not be able to achieve. But for teachers, as they say, who scaffold, who provide meaningful steps for students to get there, students will respond to that, and that's a delight. So in that sense, I really do get to see them at their best. I get to see them say, I didn't really understand Algebra 2 trig when I entered, and now I'm demonstrating mastery of it. That's a good thing. That builds real confidence, real accomplishment. You can't just assert and teach self-esteem standing on its own. When you can really solve a mathematical equation, when you can really produce results from a science lab, when you can really write a strong essay or demonstrate deep knowledge on history, that's when you get to feel good. You can't just teach it independent and say, we're going to have a self-esteem unit, but when you are accomplished and when you accomplish something meaningful, then you feel better about yourself. Then you build that confidence.
Now, you were the assistant principal over at Richmond High, correct?
That is correct.
And then you transferred over to Pinole Valley, and you've been the principal there now for 4 years?
This is my 5th year. That's exactly right.
Okay, well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I know you guys are going through a huge remodel.
We are.
Yeah, in fact, I believe it's Lathrop Construction that's doing the complete renovation of the high school.
Correct again, and they've been great partners with us.
Yeah, I know they do good work, and I know one of their head project directors. In fact, his wife works here at my company here.
The thing I would say about them, which really has made this a smooth transition, is they've been great communicators, and they've been very responsive. Inevitably, when there's some construction work going on, there's going to be a water pipe that gets nicked. There's going to be trucks moving in and out. There's going to be periods where it comes in conflict with the school community. And Lathrop and the folks we've got working on site have been straight up in terms of communicating and available when we needed them. So I would say this construction period has gone smoother than I would have anticipated.
I would assume all the classes are in portables.
You would assume correctly. The principal's office is in a portable. The restrooms are in a portable. The cafeteria is a portable. Some people have, joked and called us Portable Valley High, but we are in temporary housing for the next 2 years.
Okay, and how long has that construction been going? It's a few years already, right?
It is. This is our 4th year, and so I guess when we're all said and done, it'll be 5 years in portables.
But that school is going to look amazing, though.
It is. One of the things I really want to emphasize is that while we've been in these temporary buildings, we've really been able to sustain and grow as a campus as well. There was a lot of anxiety when we moved out to say, what's going to happen at a school that does not have a gym, that does not have a cafeteria, that doesn't have a performing arts space, that doesn't have a lot of the features that you would expect. And all the adults have pulled together to say, we're going to give a meaningful high school experience to everybody who's there. A homecoming dance, rallies, assemblies, performances. None of that stuff's going to stop because we're not in a permanent campus, because for the class of 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 19, this is their Pinole Valley High School. It's got to be great now. We can't say, wait till the new campus is built to have it be excellent.
So how do you adjust around all that?
There's been a lot of creative and community approaches to it. So the church across the street have been great neighbors, and that's our parking lot. We've had our senior breakfasts there. We've used Pinole Middle School to host our basketball games and our homecoming dance. We've used the streets of Pinole to do the homecoming parade. So the Pinole Senior Center has been a place where we've performed. So one of the things that I was really motivated about when I became a principal, which is that the high school would be a vital part of the community. In some ways, this fits that beautifully, and the community has responded and provided us space. Last year, we had a day on the green at Fernandez Park in Pinole, where the choir performed, the dance groups performed, the guitar class performed, the band performed, the clubs sold goods and services. And, why not just open our doors and say the city of Pinole will be part of our classroom?
Yeah. Now, I remember the high school before the construction started, it was all one level.
Hmm.
Now it seems like there's going to be what, three or four levels?
Three.
Three levels. So obviously it's going to be able to hold more students, correct?
That is correct.
Um, and I know Lathrop Construction, I believe they did El Cerrito High School as well. And if you drive by that, it's just an impressive building. And so I would imagine like one of the big items that stands out in front are the arc.
Hmm.
There's a one giant arc right in front. And I can just imagine when it's done, it's going to look incredible.
One of the other touches, which I really like, is there's going to be a mini sort of Greek theater style seating arrangement towards the back end of campus, where students will be able, in tiered seating, to be able to enjoy a performance. That's the stuff that excites me as well. I really like the idea that the entire campus be something that students can take advantage of. And the multi-story building means that we'll have open space as well, rather than put classrooms on every part of campus. Having one taller building with a lot of classrooms means that there'll be space for students to enjoy the outdoors as well.
Yeah, that's good. Now, sports program over there at the school. You guys have a pretty good sports program.
We do, and I want to especially shout out to the girls' teams. It's been a very rich period of accomplishment for the Lady Spartans. The volleyball team, went 10-2 this year. The softball team has won the flag for the TCAL. Soccer has won multiple pennants, and we are looking at another great season in soccer for both boys and girls. So it's something that the student body really gathers around, and I'm pleased that we offer 17 different sports. So the idea is that anybody on the student body who wishes to participate can find something of interest to them. And that's the thing that I'm proudest of is, the flags are great. They decorate my office. I put them in the window, so my goal is to have no sunlight coming through at all, as we continue to capture the flags. But ultimately, what I look for is involvement, and we seem to really make a point and a purpose of that.
That's great. I know sports played such a big role for me in high school. I played soccer. That was the only sport I played, but it's really helpful. I mean, you meet other students, the camaraderie
Mhm.
with the team, and just, yeah, it's a great experience.
The discipline that students get, the hours spent in practice, the recognition that you're part of a team, part of a unit. Um, there's an expression that says, if you want to get something done, ask a busy person. And it's amazing to me that our athletes will often turn it around in the classroom as well. It might seem counterintuitive that you'd say, well, they've got all this time that they have to travel to games and to practice. But for many of them, it tends to really focus the limited time that they have left over, and they put that into getting their academics up. I'm a big sports fan, and absolutely one in terms of what it means for the high school.
It all comes down to discipline and time management.
It
I mean,
does.
to properly manage your time, it's all discipline.
Right. And here's something else, which is kind of a fun spin-off effect of sports, which I hadn't realized. A lot of those student athletes are exposed to a lot more adult interaction than the average student. So you've got coaches, not just a head coach, but maybe assistant coaches. You've got referees who you're dealing with. At the end of the game, you shake the hand and greet the coaches of opposing teams. And this means by the time you are done with your sports, and you may come to the main office or the counselor's office, you are aware that there's an adult world out there of grown-ups who are working to assist you or working on their other parts of their job. And those students tend to be more aware of their place, which is to say, this adult may need a little extra time, but they're going to get back to me. They seem to be conscious of the adult world in a way that students who haven't been involved in sports or activities are. So, if there's a kid who comes to the office and says, Kibby, I really need to tell you about what's going on in this class, If I don't have time, they say, hey, I know you're busy. I know you've got other things. So, call me in when you've got a chance. That awareness seems to come from students who spend a lot of time with coaches and a lot of time with other adults who recognize that the adults are both there to serve and there to guide.
Hmm. And same thing with music too.
Got a great music program. I couldn't be prouder of the music program at our school. We have the best band in the district. Mr. Radkowitz is the band teacher. Mr. Flanagan works with the choir, and these guys are totally out in the community. The band plays, I think, about 50 gigs a year, and they go to a Veterans Day ceremony at Fernandez Park, and they play at both the boys and the girls basketball games. They are there at the holiday tree lighting ceremony. The choir goes to the senior center to play for the senior citizens. And that's what I like to see. The more interaction kids have with community, the easier it's going to be for them to make that transition. School, you're just playing for an audience of just schoolmates. But when you're out in the city, then you're dealing with adults and little kids, and that's, I think, where real growth happens. I could not embrace the music program more. They are fantastic.
Now, one of the issues that uh, people see a lot in the media is this program, that program's getting cut. How do you combat that? Of course, funding's always a problem, right? You need funding to run programs. Um, have you had many programs cut from the school? If not, how have you combated the funding issue?
It's a battle. It certainly is, and the way you combat it is with making those things high profile and letting people see that it matters, and then you will have a group of supporters. The Day on the Green was a perfect example where we showed off a lot of our talents. The choir that I spoke of, the band that we spoke of, and it cost money to use the park. Well, that's not money that we could easily access. So community members, parents, and folks who had benefited from or who had kids who had been involved in that went to the city council and said, look, could you waive the fees and allow the students to play this free show out in the community? And that community support worked. We've got a constituency of people who've been through the speech and debate program. We've got members of the community who support our health and our law academies. And so when those things get out and in public, then the public comes forth and delivers for us. So we've been lucky, but yeah, we're always vigilant about our funding and being able to sustain and grow our programs.
That's awesome. And I would imagine a lot of students themselves get highly involved, especially when they want something so bad.
They do. Your own experience in soccer, I'm sure, can vouch for that. That if you are a member of the band, you rely on your classmates to be there, and this is where your time is spent outside the classroom, and this is your social life, and this is where you might spend nights and weekends. So, absolutely, it gives students a deeper sense of belonging.
Yeah. Now, one thing I've noticed, and I'm curious to see if you've noticed the same thing. I remember when I was in school, both middle school and high school, politics wasn't a big discussion amongst the students. But now it seems like middle school and high school kids are so into politics and they're more aware of what's going on. And so, have you noticed that same difference throughout your career that today the students are more involved or at least know more what's going on?
Definitely. We have a couple student clubs which devote themselves to politics, absolutely. And we have kids who stand up and who join protests or join causes. I don't think anybody can be neutral in 2017. I don't think there's really a place to say, this doesn't involve me. I mean, they're very education, they're very future, depends on what's happening with adults who are making legislation and executive decisions. So we want to continue to provide a forum and a megaphone for students who want to speak out. And we want to make sure that those who advocate for less popular causes have their opportunity to speak as well. But yeah, I don't think you can shut the gates and lift up the drawbridge and say, we have nothing to do with that out in Washington, D.C. or in Sacramento. It all involves us.
Yeah, it seems like just the entire, the appearance and the boost of the internet. Now everyone's got social media, everyone has access to news and literally at their fingertips in their phones. And
True.
now they're able to throw in their opinion. To me, I find it amazing, whichever side they're on, but just the fact that they're aware of what's going on, they're involved, and they have their own opinions is amazing.
Definitely true. We don't want them to use their phones during class, though.
Yeah. So, as a real estate agent, I get people that ask me all the time, what are the schools like? Do you have parents and families that are looking to purchase in the area that actually show up to the school to question you? Or maybe do you get emails and phone calls asking about details of the school?
Each and every one. That's exactly right, Mark. We have at our site opportunities for parents to come in and walk through the school, to visit classrooms, to speak with teachers. But I certainly get people who are transitioning from parochial schools or independent schools or home study, or who are moving in, who want to know about the school. And I'm the principal, and I'm going to have a biased and particular point of view. But here's the thing I think I can say objectively, which is Pinole Valley High School has a great number of opportunities, which is really why it's a place I've settled and kept at. Dozens of clubs, all sorts of academic programs, 10 AP programs, which are college prep level, advanced placement. We've got support classes for English learners and for special needs students, and events and activities round the clock. We are an hour away from a soccer game here during winter break, and so there is activity throughout. We've got a great arts program that has done murals around the school and been reported in the East Bay Times and the Contra Costa Marketplace and ABC News. And kids show up in the art room before school, at lunchtime, and after school to work on projects and create holiday presents for their families. So what I tell those coming to my door who say, is this a good place? I would say the answer is, this is absolutely a place for you if your student wants to get involved and to connect.
And there's a little bit for everyone.
I would think so, and I hope so. And where there isn't, we encourage people to create. So guess we didn't have an ultimate Frisbee team. Now we do. So, somebody somewhere, has decided that Dungeons and Dragons is what they want to do. And a club has been formed and they meet 2 days a week. I don't understand what they're doing, but they look really happy doing it.
Yeah. Now, what's the Earth Team?
The Earth Team is a group committed to environmental awareness. Outside agencies have come in and helped to coordinate, and students actually get paid to do some of the coastal cleanup work and their volunteer efforts as well. We all went out to Pinole Creek last year and picked out some non-native plants, so that was pretty fun. And we gather and they do trash surveys. What is it that people are throwing out, and how could we do better? So, Pinole is a lovely area in terms of both the flora and the fauna, and the Earth Team really heightens awareness about that. So this is a group of students who are really green focused.
That's amazing. Like, there was no team or no club like that at my high school when I went there. I mean, that's what I was saying. It's just amazing to see the more diverse clubs that are coming up, and not just in Pinole Valley, but there's a lot of high schools that are starting to have these different clubs.
Yeah, I mean, I think people look and say, if there's a need, if there's a desire, can we provide it? And for that, I'm going to give it up to our teachers who are willing to take these clubs on as sponsors, as adult advisors. I can't pay them any more money to do that. They do this out of the fact that, they see a passion, that they want to support. Maybe they had an interest in the environment, or they had an interest in anime, or they had an interest in cooking. We have a culinary club that meets every Wednesday, and as they're making Thanksgiving meals and Christmas cookies, and this is what they do, and that's great. But what makes it even better is that I've got an adult willing to stay an hour and a half or 2 hours after school out of their own goodwill to say, this is meaningful for the kids, and I want to support that. That's, irreplaceable.
Now, are the adults voluntary or is it faculty staff?
No, these are faculty. These are my teachers at the end of the workday who say, "I'll spend my lunch with, or I'll spend my after school with, um, the Y team, or I will spend my time after school to support the Poly Club, or K-pop, or Indo-Pac, or the Muslim Student Alliance, or the Latino Club." And these are adults who, on their own, have said, "I'm willing to put in that time because they're kids who feel passionately about this."
That's amazing.
Mhm.
Now, I wanted to get your opinion on this because times are changing and there's a lot of theories on how education will evolve down the road. Are we going to be more online type educators? We see universities like Stanford, Yale, Oxford testing out small little online classes and online courses. Where do you see high school educating or education going? I mean, do you see it eventually being 100% online, or do you see what changes do you see?
That's a great question, and we are right in the middle of trying to answer that on the fly. The district's committed to a one-on-one electronics policy, meaning that every student in West Contra Costa will have a tablet at their disposal. Um, this is where the information is. They do not publish encyclopedias any longer. So inevitably, if we say, "Students, we want you to work on a research project," that's going to involve looking online. Part of our job is to teach students what the powerful and proper resources are, to evaluate and take a look and say, this is authentic and this is less so, to differentiate between fact and opinion. So there's an awful lot of work to do, and that's appropriate. And, school can't be separated from the outside world. It is absolutely a part of it. So it's up to us to figure out how to best teach and train our students to use those resources. It's a great opportunity. The people talk about differentiated and individualized instruction, meaning that students can be given a wide variety of topics in which to do a research paper on, or they can look at resources unimaginable from what you or I would have had when putting something together. So I think that's a question we're going to have to keep asking and answering, for the next generation.
What about the curriculum?
The curriculum is going to evolve as well.
Because
Textbooks are something that we grew accustomed to. That you'd have six classes and six different textbooks, and now a lot of that material is going to be available online. Um, you
and
know,
also
stu-
audio. I have a Google Home at home, and I say, "Hey Google, who's the fourth president of the United States?" And it just tells you.
Yeah, I know, right. And so I think you really hit on something there, which is that fact-based knowledge. Do we need to have students sit and memorize, the presidents in order? I mean, certainly we want them to know, but it's a matter of saying, how do we maximize what the instructor can do while the students are in the seats in front of them? In the same way that we would have never applauded a teacher who said, "Here's a worksheet, have at it," because they could do that with or without the teacher. The question we want to ask ourselves is this: you have 55 minutes in a classroom, and you've got a teacher, and you've got 30 to 35 other students with you. What is it that you can do in that space with those people that can't be reproduced anywhere else? How do you use your peers? How do you use that instructor? And that's the time we really want to maximize, because obviously the students will have the ability to pull from the World Wide Web when they're out of that classroom. So, how do we make the classroom most relevant and most useful?
Now, do you think that challenge in itself is more difficult than challenges you dealt with when you first started teaching in high school, or are they equally the same, just different?
It's different, because with the online resources comes great opportunity as well. As we were just saying, perhaps when I was a teacher, I would have said, commit to memory all of the presidents of the 20th century. And that was time spent, which today's teacher may not have to do, which opens up and says that teacher can now do and ask for other things that couldn't be done before. Think of creative kinds of presentations. You or I might have stood next to a poster board that we worked on. Now students absolutely do PowerPoint type work with graphics and animation and the like. So there are opportunities and there are challenges both way. I wouldn't say that, the teacher of 2017 has it easier or harder than the teacher of 1987, but they better be doing it differently.
You said posters. I stressed out so much when I had to put together those poster boards.
Yeah, I wasn't good at that either. How about dioramas?
Yeah. Um, Now, over your career, what made you decide I want to go from teaching to more administration and eventually to the principal? I mean, and is that something that every teacher in the back of their mind has, that they one day want to become principal?
No, it isn't, because I had a lot of peers who I worked with who said, "Oh, you've gone over to the dark side." So the answer is definitely not. And myself, I hadn't envisioned myself as a school administrator. I was quite comfortable going to my classroom, locking the door, and saying whatever happens in room 209 is going to be something that nobody else can touch. Ultimately, I looked at the things outside of my classroom and said, I want to have influence there, or I have opinions or ideas about it. It was the idea of kind of expanding my own citizenhood and saying, there are elements which impact me as a teacher, which I'd like to change. And when I was invited to become a teacher on special assignment, kind of a quasi-administrative role, I tested it by just dipping my toes in the water and continuing to teach for a couple periods a day, and then teaching just one period a day, and then finally took the plunge and said, I think I'm ready to become a school administrator. And, I hope I do good work at it. I hope that, I've made a difference. But, the work really happens in the classroom. And so now it's my job to support those teachers and make sure that they have the tools and the resources they need to deliver instruction to students. That's what it's all about.
So you're managing the entire school. I mean, you have staff, you have, I mean, the administration staff, then you have the actual faculty staff, the teachers that are dealing with the students. Then you have the actual students themselves. I mean, what's your average day look like?
You forgot about the custodians, the security staff, and the rest as well. It's like being in charge of a
Construction workers.
family. Yeah, I don't have a lot of clout over those guys. It's like watching over a small city, and with it comes all the expected and unexpected elements of what that would bring. You ever heard the joke that says, "You want to make God laugh? Make a plan." That's sort of what it's like. I can come in and committed to saying these are the things I'm going to get done this day, and inevitably many other things arise. Um, I would hope a person who has a vision, for my school and what direction I want it to head into. At the same time, I hope I am a capable manager. I have two, great assistant principals who I'm able to delegate to, who are able to intercept things, who are able to act as administrators themselves, counseling staff. So it's a matter of putting the right people in the right place and directing traffic so that needs are met. The thing that I want primarily is great communication. So if our parents call, we will respond. We may not have the answer that they want, but we are obligated and committed to open and regular communication.
So I know one thing that I believe every high school student talks about are SATs and testing. So when it comes to SAT and test scores, how do you look for trends of whether scores are going up, going down? What do the ratings mean? And how do you as a principal step in to then change the curriculum to then improve scores?
Well, then you get to the question mark of, like, do you want to teach to a test? Is that ultimately what the purpose is? California has seen the high school exit exam come and go. The California Standardized Test, the CSTs, come and go. We're currently working on SBAC, the Smarter Balance testing. So all of these things are attempts to say, can we look amongst a variety of schools and come up with a metric, a measure to say how good the school is doing? A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's aren't a very good measure. You could have a teacher who is very stingy in terms of giving grades and a teacher who's very generous. And even within the same school, an A in this teacher's class may not equal an A in that teacher's class. So those standardized tests carry significant weight for future endeavors, for colleges and universities and the like, to be able to say, are students at Pinole Valley High School achieving? Certainly, we want to put students in a position where they will excel. And when we get those tests back and that information, that helps inform what our next steps will be. The Smarter Balance is a test that asks juniors to see how well they do in English and mathematics. I'm proud to say at Pinole Valley High School, both English and math increased by 5 percentage points last year, being the only school in the district which accomplished that. We feel good about that, but we're still not where we want to be. Our goal is to become a California Gold Ribbon school, which means at least in the top half of the state. So we're going back to the drawing board and taking a look at areas on those tests where we did not excel and looking to see if we can improve student achievement on that. We've hired a pair of math specialists out of our budget to work specifically on that subject to make sure that we hit our targets. So the results of tests, when we do them right, informs and suggests to us what we need to be doing to do it better.
So you're a CEO. You're running the business. There's a lot of components.
I suppose so. I don't know how many CEOs have to go and bring like extra paper towels to the girls' restroom, but yeah, if I'm that kind of CEO.
Well, that's a good CEO because it
Thank
shows
you.
everyone you're involved.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a job for one who has a fragile ego. I mean, if the posting for what room you go to needs to come up, I've got a stapler, I've got 2 arms, I can do it myself. And I think when everybody pitches in, it sends a message to the rest of the school community. There's no job too high or job too low that we aren't working together on this.
Now, how many teachers are at Pinole Valley?
We have over 50 teachers.
So when you took over as principal, how was it? Because you went from assistant principal at Richmond to Pinole. Do you know a lot of the teachers already at Pinole Valley?
I didn't. I knew some in my own discipline. I knew some of the history teachers. And through district conferences, I had met a handful more. But largely, it was a new group to me.
So how was that transition for you in trying to gain their trust, trying to gain their respect as someone fresh coming in as a new principal? And then on top of that, trying to manage all the different components of a school. And on top of that, you have your own vision for where you want to take the school. How do you incorporate all that?
I think that where you start is to observe what's already in place. You take the time and examine what's already working at the school. Because the fact is that so many of those teachers already have effective and successful classroom spaces. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You have to demonstrate your own competence, your own consistency, your own ability to follow through. And when that happens, the good teachers will then come to you. I knew that I was in a good space when the very best of the teachers would come up and ask me for something. In the beginning, they held back, understandably, because they didn't know if I was for real. If I proved my bona fides and followed through on what I say and, listen and both act on requests and, develop my own ideas and can deliver, then people will come to you and say, could you get me this? Could you get me that? Could we work on this together? It really requires everybody kind of pulling in the same direction. And I've been really fortunate to be given a good staff when I walked in. And they've done nothing but improve and show me their worth since I've been there.
Would you say that's been the hardest part as a principal?
The hardest part as a principal is adults who create situations which trigger kids. This isn't necessarily a teacher, it could be a parent, but it's hard enough for students to excel. And when adults provoke bad behavior, that's the hardest thing to deal with, because we don't want to criticize adults in the presence of kids. We want to support our adults, but sometimes they need to be gently corrected and put back in the right way. A kid who is set off because an adult has agitated them, presents a problem because obviously we have to discipline and correct the student. You're not allowed to curse out the adult. You're not allowed to act out in a violent or dangerous way. And sometimes adults trigger that kind of behavior, and that's tough to deal with. Did the adult do wrong? Yeah, but did the kid commit the offense that needs to be corrected? You bet.
Hmm. That would be very tough to deal with, I would imagine.
It is.
'Cause I would imagine you deal with some parents that, they have their viewpoints, they have their attitudes, and they're just not going to change, budge, or they're just so hard-headed sometimes that they don't even want to consider the fact that they're wrong.
Listen, we're educators. If you can teach kids, you can teach adults too. And the fact is that we're in this for the long haul, and our hope is that a parent who comes with us in their freshman year, by the time their child's a senior, will see. We aim to deliver what we promise, and with their assistance and help, we can make it happen. So. Nobody is too old to learn, and that includes our teachers, that includes our parents, and that includes this principal.
Can always teach an old dog new tricks, right?
Well, you better, yeah.
Now, how much communication is there between teachers and parents on average?
That's gotten easier over the years. The internet has made it possible that every teacher has a web address. It's easy for parents to access both their students' academic records and be able to contact the teachers. The teachers at my school are very good in terms of responding to both emails and phone calls and letting parents know when they're available for a conference. I strongly encourage and support that. So, we expect teachers to be available at more than just back to school night or open house. If a parent wishes to drop an email that day to just check in on their child, we lay out the red carpet.
Do you guys use software like Google Docs and Sheets? And it's amazing what technology does
We
nowadays.
do. You were talking about an old dog. This one could use a little bit of help on that. But yeah, I've got teachers doing all kinds of things like that who excitedly show me, and then they have to show me 5 more times. And eventually I get it.
But it makes it very easy for the kids because they can turn in work a lot faster. And especially with Google Docs, everything is live
Yeah.
right there. They could type up the report. There's no, hey, my dog ate my homework or anything because it's right there online.
Right. The fact is, we have to work with that too, and we've got a software program that helps us to take a look and see whether that work is the student's original work or whether it was plagiarized. So students will submit their work to an online program that identifies and says, this is original work, or 80% of this came from somewhere else. So it's a constant kind of process.
Yeah. Yeah. I know some Instagram accounts that are very popular because of, they make the memes, the photos with words, and they're very popular. But then every now and then I see them advertising, hey, send us your essay. And for $80, we'll write up your essay, send it to you, that sort of thing. And so a lot of those essays that they get, if they actually hire someone to do those services, are plagiarized. They just copy and paste, and they give it to a ton of kids across the nation. And so, yeah, it's good that you have that software that can identify that.
We do, and hold out for $150 or $200 essay, right?
Yeah. So, Pinole Valley High School, located on Pinole Valley Road. If someone wants more information, what's the best way for them to contact the school?
Absolutely. They can always reach out through our website, and we've got an online profile. If you went to pinolevalleyhighschool.org, you would be able to see all the events and the activities going on. You're always welcome to come into the school. Make sure you turn in the first driveway, otherwise you're going to come into a construction site. And we are available morning, noon, and night, and encourage both our parents and community members and outsiders to come check us out. I think you'll like what you see.
Great. Now, before we finish, we do have to talk about, how do you like the beer that we're drinking?
Wow, this beer is great. And let me point out that we are here in the afternoon during our winter break. So this is
not during school hours.
Definitely not. But this is really tasty. This is Prohibition
Speakeasy.
Ale, Speakeasy, an amber, and it goes down smooth.
Yeah. And before we finish this off, one last question. What have you learned overall during your 30 years as an educator?
That I never stop learning. That there is, with every new student who comes in and every new family, with every teacher who continues to work at this, opportunities for learning and opportunities for growth. And that you can walk into not just Pinole Valley High School, not just a high school, not just a public school, but any place that an educator walks into, they should be able to take something out which they can apply or use at their own school. I visited a second grade classroom when I was a teacher where they were asking the students what they knew about ancient England. And the students said things like, they used to say thee and thou a lot. They ate, roast turkey as part of their ceremonies. And I thought, this is a great idea and could be applied to the high school, and used in my own history class as we approached a unit at Kennedy High School and said, what do you guys know about John F. Kennedy? And at the beginning of the year, they knew very little, but within a month, we revisited that and they knew a lot. That's what I'm talking about. The opportunity to take a look and say, if I walk through your school, I'll see something on the wall I've never seen before. I'll see the desks organized in a way that would be useful. I'll see a bell schedule that's creative. I'll see a community event that we should bite. And so I would say the biggest thing I've learned is that, I should never stop learning and always find ways to improve and reach more of my students.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Kibby, for being on the podcast.
The pleasure's mine. Thanks for such great questions and for such tasty beer.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you to our producer, Sam Lubman. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Google Play, SoundCloud, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. For more information on my business as a property manager and real estate team, go visit my website at marcguzman.com. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.